as Young fires from way downtown and takes him out. Not a
Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. This time how the Hawks rode back to the playoffs. I want to thank you guys so much for the support you guys have been showing on this channel recently, and I cannot wait to show you guys this video. But before we get into that, I have a few exciting announcements. Firstly, we have created an Instagram page for the channel where I upload minute-long videos on everything NBA. Right now, I should have 3 to 4 videos up on everything from NBA higher or lower to Shaq compared to everyday items. And just to get this page started, and thank you guys so much for the support you guys have been showing, I'll be sending one of you guys $50. All you gotta do is follow me and shoot me a DM, and I'll make sure to get that to you. Also, I need you guys to let me know which video you guys want to see next. I've already made a video on the Suns, which I'll leave linked below, but I'm also thinking about making videos to the remaining playoff teams. Let me know if you guys want to see that and which teams you guys want to see first. But anyways, without further ado, let's get straight into this video. So this rebuild really starts in 2014, but to understand the reasoning behind some of the Hawks' decisions, I need to quickly summarize the last few years leading into 2014. So before 2014, the Hawks were a good team, but not a great one, and it started in 2007 when the Hawks were finally able to make the playoffs after an 8-year drought. Now this Hawks team was actually pretty bad, and they only managed to slip into the playoffs because of a very top-heavy Eastern Conference that year. But in the first round, they almost shocked the world as the 8th seed taking on the 1st seed record-breaking super team Celtics all the way to 7 games where they were eventually eliminated. So even with this loss, there was a lot to be excited about with this growing franchise. And in the next season, they managed to improve to 47 wins for the 4th seed. But they still couldn't make a deep playoff run, as in the second round, they were eliminated by the LeBron Cavs. But the team was still improving, and in 2009, they managed to further build their team, leading them to 53 wins in the 3rd seed. However, once again, they failed to advance far in the playoffs, getting brutally swept by the Howard Magic. At this point, frustrations were starting to rise as this team was consistently dominating in the regular season and following it up with poor playoff performances. And the next year was no different as they managed to clinch the 5th seed only to get eliminated in the second round once again. Now this trend continued for the next few years as in 2011 they had 40 wins only to lose in the first round. In 2012 they climbed to 44 wins to once again lose in the first round. And in 2013 they got 38 wins and you guessed it, lost in the first round. So at this point, the Hawks had 3 major options. Firstly, they could blow the whole team up and start rebuilding now, or they could use some of that excess cap space to sign a new star player, or they could just try it again with the current team. And to all of us, this seems like an incredibly easy decision. Most of us would probably choose options 1 or 2, and we've seen a lot of NBA franchises do the same. We've seen option 1 with OKC trading away Paul George and Russell Westbrook when it wasn't working out. And we've seen option 2 with the Pistons trading for Blake Griffin to make them competitive in the playoffs. But the then sophomore coach Mike Budenholzer wanted one more shot with his current team, but didn't want to disturb their chemistry, so instead decided to sign role players instead of a star player to fill up the rest of their team. So coming into the season, the Hawks were almost identical to last year's disappointing team, with the exception of only Kent Bazemore and Thabo Sefolosha. So naturally, all NBA analysts wrote this team off as a 35-40 win team, followed by a first round exit. But throughout the season, the Hawks were proving the doubters wrong, and by the end of the season, they managed to improve to 60 wins and only 22 losses for the 1st seed. The main reason for this incredible season was the crazy, almost unreal amounts of chemistry and unselfishness that this Hawks team had. They had no real singular star on the team, as they had 6 players averaging between 10 to 20 points, with the top scorer only putting up 17 points per game. Overall, this Hawks team had managed to turn it around and kept this energy in the playoffs as they beat both the Brook Lopez Nets and John Wall Wizards in 6 games each, leading to an exciting Eastern Conference Finals between the Hawks and the Cavs in LeBron's first year back. The Hawks seem to have a real shot at the finals. The Cavs had just lost Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love to injuries in the previous rounds, while the Hawks are still mostly healthy. But in Game 1, the Hawks lost after LeBron and J.R. Smith combined for 60 points. In Game 2, the Hawks lost once again after LeBron scored 30 points with 9 rebounds and 11 assists. In a pivotal Game 3, the Cavs were able to force overtime where LeBron ended up hitting the game winner and dagger to take a 3-0 lead. And finally in Game 4, the Cavs blew out the Hawks to become the first team in over a decade to sweep a 1st seed.
The season was all about everyone touches the basketball. Nice alley-oop there from LeBron.
fade. Rebound, Thompson back to LeBron. Fakes the 3, then shoots it in.
He stays back and let LeBron come to him.
And here comes James. And he goes glass. 3-point lead for the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavaliers making a 4-game sweep and headed to the NBA Finals.
So now coming into the next season, the Hawks were in a tough situation. Last season, they had some of the best circumstances available, with the whole team clicking and advancing through the playoffs to face an injured Cavs team before getting to the NBA Finals, but were still swept. And now the Hawks didn't have any cap space to make major free agency signings, and the whole team had just gotten older. So for the next season, no one really had the Hawks making it out of the Eastern Conference, let alone beating the Warriors, but it was close to impossible to blow up a 60-win team without at least trying once again. So they ran it back one more year, which ended up with a 12-win regression from last year to 48 wins, but still with a promising 4th seed. And in the first round, they managed to beat the Isaiah Thomas Celtics before once again having to face LeBron James. And just like last year, in only 4 games, the Hawks season was over.
Bazemore has it, gives it to Schroeder. Schroeder's been the hot man. Will he go for the win? Schroeder to the basket, turned away. James pulls it away. Jump ball is called. 8 inches to James, who wins the tap. It goes to the corner. Horford tries to get to it. The 3 is on the way. Millsap, it's off, and it's over. And the
2016 NBA Draft, the Utah Jazz select Taurean Prince from Baylor University.
Wow.
So now coming into their 9th straight season after a disappointing playoff performance, tensions were high, especially with the players. And soon both Jeff Teague and Al Horford, 2 staples of the Hawks organization for years, decided to move on from the team, with Jeff Teague requesting a trade and Al Horford signing with the Celtics. But now the Hawks had cap space, and to fill Al Horford's hole and get a new star player that could lead the team, the Hawks decided to give Dwight Howard a 3-year, $70 million contract. Now Howard was coming off his worst ever season with the Rockets, but the Hawks hoped to turn his performance around, making him the new franchise player that could lead them not only in regular season games, but specifically in the playoffs, as their lack of a true star had hurt them in pivotal moments last year. Unfortunately, this never happened as Dwight couldn't return to his prime form. Luckily, the Hawks saw the emergence of Dennis Schroeder, who along with Paul Millsap led the Hawks to the 5th seed. But once again, none of this mattered as the Hawks failed to perform in the playoffs, getting eliminated in the first round to the Wizards.
Timmy from nearly mid-floor. 18 seconds left. Coach Bud makes that long, lonely walk down to shake the hand of Scott Brooks and wish him well in the playoffs for a back.
After the disappointing season, the Hawks surprisingly gave up on the Dwight Howard experiment, trading him away for only Miles Plumlee and Marco Bellinelli, both of whom barely played for the Hawks. In the long run, this turned out to be an incredible decision as reports came out that the Hawks players were cheering in jubilation when they found out they didn't have to play with Dwight Howard anymore.
The Atlanta Hawks select John Collins from Wake Forest University.
So now, coming into the 2017 to 2018 season, the Hawks had finally accepted the rebuild, losing Kyle Korver, Paul Millsap, and Tim Hardaway Jr. for the next season. This team was definitely a lottery team, and now their only purpose was to develop their young core, with the hope of one of them becoming a superstar. But this superstar didn't arrive this season as the Hawks fell from the 5th seed last season to the 15th seed this season, ending with only 24 wins.
On the steal, Hawks are running. On the lob to Collins! Oh my goodness, what a dunk! What a pass!
1 game to advance. Collins again with a monster.
After 5 disappointing seasons, the Hawks decided to move on from Coach Bud and instead signed Lloyd Pierce as his replacement.
5th pick in the 2018 NBA Draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Trae Young from the University of Oklahoma.
So during the NBA draft, the Hawks had a chance to sign Luka Doncic, but instead made a major decision by trading down in the draft to grab Trae Young, while also receiving a future first-round pick, which ended up being Cam Reddish. And while this team did look slightly better than last year, the playoffs are still not in sight for the young Hawks. And exactly as everyone predicted, the Hawks finished with only 5 more wins for the 12th seed in the West. While their record wasn't the best, both John Collins and Trae Young were showing flashes of greatness during the season, and the duo is emerging as the future leaders of the Hawks.
Left in a possession ball game.
Young put it on spin. Got it to go in.
Collins on the handoff. Trae gives it back to him, and a jam for John Collins.
Jeremy Lamb a little bit late.
With the 10th pick in the 2019 NBA Draft, the Atlanta Hawks select Cam Reddish from Duke University.
So coming into the next season, the Hawks' outlook was truly a mystery, as they had a lot of young, inexperienced talent that needed to step up for them to make the playoffs. Most of all, the Hawks were hoping that either Trae Young or John Collins, who at this point were pretty much even in terms of skill, would step up this season and become the star go-to franchise player that they were missing for the past decades. And as the season went on, the Hawks finally found him as Trae Young stepped into his role as the franchise player, putting on a dominant season, averaging close to 30 points per game. Unfortunately, the Hawks still struggled as their bench crumbled offensively when the starters were subbed out. On top of that, their interior defense and coaching schemes were terrible, leading Atlanta to only 20 wins.
Captures the dribble. Free to shoot. Banks it in! A three-pointer for Trae Young! You are a cheat code, young man.
The Atlanta Hawks select Onyeka Okongwu from the University of Southern California.
And here it is, Onyeka Okongwu.
So coming into the next season, the Hawks had one goal: to build bench depth. And the organization decided it was time to use all that excess cap space to make 5 major free agency signings. Firstly, they signed Danilo Gallinari to a 3-year $61 million deal. After that, they signed Bogdan Bogdanovic to a 4-year $72 million contract. They also traded for both Tony Snell and Clint Capella, adding another $63 million in contracts. And finally, they signed Rajon Rondo to a 2-year $15 million deal. All in all, the Hawks had just signed 5 players, and all 5 players became the highest paid Hawks that year, and half of them weren't even starting. In fact, both Gallinari and Bogdanovic were being paid almost 3 times as much as John Collins and Trae Young. But these moves are crucial to the Hawks' attempt at building bench depth and improving their interior defense. Still, it was incredibly dangerous as the Hawks had basically invested all their cap space on long-term deals, and if these players didn't click, the Hawks would be stuck with a terrible cap situation for years. And halfway through the year, it seemed as if these fears were coming true, as the Hawks started 14 for 20 for the 11th seed in the East. The biggest problem for the Hawks seemed to be their lack of focus in the fourth quarter, as they routinely blow big leads and collapse in close games. And the biggest factor leading to this was their terrible coaching. So midway through the season, they decided to fire Lloyd Pierce, replacing him with Nate McMillan, while also making a minor move by trading away Rajon Rondo for Lou Williams. And instantly the Hawks saw positive results as they closed the season with 27 wins and only 11 losses to end up with a 41-31 record for the 5th seed. Now, as we all know, the Hawks have been incredibly dominant so far in the playoffs, as Trae Young nightly is putting on a show, leading the Hawks past the Knicks and into a tight series against the 76ers. And what I think the biggest difference is between this Hawks team and previous Hawks teams is the presence of a go-to superstar like Trae Young. In playoff fourth quarters, Trae Young is averaging 8.2 points per game, which is tied for best in the entire NBA and higher than all these players. In previous years, the Hawks didn't have a go-to superstar like Trae Young, and now it's paying dividends. Anyways, that's going to be all for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to follow my Instagram for a chance at $50, but I'll see you guys next time. Peace.